Southern Sudan splits away from the north. That's going to happen this weekend on the 9th of July. It's going to be creating Africa's newest country. That's after Southerners voted for secession under terms of the comprehensive peace agreement that was reached in 2005. The upcoming challenges will certainly take a back seat to the euphoria and the jubilation around liberation. Let's talk to the World Bank right now and get their perspective. Catherine Masinde, Senior Private Sector Development Specialist there at World Bank. Catherine, thanks so much for your time.
Good afternoon.
All right, so with the advent of independence, that's going to happen on the 9th of July, there are great expectations that the Southern Sudanese have for themselves. What are the priorities?
Right now, their priorities are mainly to settle down and develop their country. They're very focused on development. They're very focused on getting in investors, and we've been helping them prepare for that.
All right. But the road to liberation has been marred by violence. This year alone, over 2,360 people have been killed in ethnic clashes, particularly South Kordofan. What are the problems?
I am not really familiar with the political angle here, and I cannot comment very much on the war in the north. But what I know is that even in those states, they're preparing for investors. They're very keen to get development on the ground to reduce some of the impacts of that conflict.
Okay. So on Saturday also, like I'm saying, we have a situation where the UN mission ends there, the comprehensive peace agreement expires, and they've got to now tackle their own security and their own developmental issues. Is the administration ready for that?
I think the government is trying very hard. What I understand is that there are a lot of plans in place to get some capacity on the ground to deal with these issues. There will be a period of time when all of us should continue to support the country because they are at that point where they are developing a new nation. So I think what I can say is that if they do get development through private sector investments, it will be a sustainable development.
I mean, infrastructure is a very basic and pressing need for Southern Sudan. We know that a lot of Kenyan cement companies are wanting to get in there, so to the banks, to help fund some of this infrastructure investment. But is there a plan, a blueprint?
The Southern Sudanese government has just produced their first development plan, and infrastructure is a key element of this. When I first went into Southern Sudan, they had only 8 kilometers of tarred road in the whole region. As we speak today, they have well over 200 kilometers already done. So my view is that they have actually got a plan in mind. They've put it on paper. They're sharing it with development partners, with the private sector. And I believe that this is going to be a solid plan going forward.
Human capital in Southern Sudan, because we know that the poverty rate is quite high, and so too the illiteracy rate, apparently above 70%. A lot of Southern Sudanese who've been living in Northern Sudan are coming home to be part of this, and they may contribute in the civil service. But generally, how is having a poverty-stricken, unskilled population going to hamper the development process here?
I think the Southern Sudanese have had the last 5 years to test out some of the models. And what I know is that they're working very hard with different governments, with IGAD, for example, to help them get capacity on the ground quite quickly. We see a lot of people from the diaspora coming back and bringing with them quite high skills. And I think the challenge is to find a place for these people to stay, because the housing market hasn't picked up yet. And that's where the private sector is really going to add value. Building schools, building healthcare facilities is what really is going to be the bedrock of the human capacity development. But having said that, people like ourselves at the IFC have been helping them to put in place building blocks to get the private sector to get interested in partnering with the government to develop some of these areas.
Private sector development, because in as much as we're going to rely on donors to get involved and FDI, you need to have a component of local Sudanese investment. How dynamic and vibrant is that?
We know, for example, right now most of the investors are from the region. but we've begun to see quite a large cohort of returnees coming with entrepreneurial skills, and they're beginning to register businesses. Since IFC started working with the government, for example, we've seen registration of businesses up to 10,000 in the last 5 years, which is actually a big achievement if you think about it. And a large proportion of that are SMEs, which means that, although we haven't done the statistics, which means that a large proportion of that is likely to be local Sudanese people in partnership with regional investors or, in fact, independently as Southern Sudanese. But there is a big job ahead of all of us, and we need to support them to actually build those skills right from the bottom.
Obviously, you can't talk about Sudan, whether north or south, without mentioning the issue of oil and the very contentious question of who controls the oil and the refining capacity and all those sorts of issues. Their plan, it seems, is to bypass northern Sudan by not using their refineries, even though they have the oil wells, trying to do it through the refiners in Mombasa. They need those oil revenues almost immediately towards their coffers.
What I can say is that I don't know what the plans are in terms of sharing of oil and sharing of the revenue, because
contents of the peace agreement.
Yes, because that's a different discussion from the one we have about the business environment. But what I can tell you is that in the business plan, in the development plan, there's a very, very strong push away from oil. Because currently more than 90% of the budget of Southern Sudan, and in fact the Northern Sudan, depends on oil. And Southern Sudan is very keen to move away from oil dependency, and they are asking IFC and the World Bank and others to help them restructure their economy away from oil to rebalance their needs. So
what do they have
I
to
can
offer?
see
like agriculture?
They have got huge potential in agriculture. We've just helped them to complete a sector profile of several sectors. Agriculture, minerals, they've got, from what I have heard, more than 30 precious minerals that the world is looking for, and really that's really an open opportunity for investors.